Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Haolonggood release, another ceratopsian to add to the line. As you can see, we have the Einiosaurus in 1/35th scale, and what's cool about this is more often than not, you usually have to buy each of the figures individually. However, with this release, as you can see, it says that it includes the base as well as two of the Einiosaurus, so they all come in one package, which is definitely really cool. But again, as far as the box art, you've got the Haolonggood logo, the species name, the scale, again, a very, very cool image of the figures there on the front, and then up here, a nice little checklist of a bunch of different figures in the line, which at this point, there are so many in the Haolonggood line. But let's go ahead, pop this box open, and check it out. So there we go, we have everything out and looking super cool. I don't know for sure that they're on the base correctly, but they look fun, no doubt about that. Again, two gorgeous versions of this ceratopsian, and this is one we've been waiting for a little while because they had that really cool image out a while back that actually had shown off all of the different figures that they were planning on releasing, and these were like the only ones that were still left from that image. So it's very exciting to finally have these guys and be able to complete that image again as far as the releases go. But if we bring in our Einiosaurus and we begin with this version, I actually really like the light tones of color on this one. I think that looks really cool. But starting here in the head sculpt, you can see the skin texture as per usual, looks fantastic. I'm actually going to move this base here just out of the way a little bit more to try to stop any sort of distractions for the camera. But again, the skin texture looking really good, really vibrant as always. Lots of very impressive fine detail. We can see the nostrils sculpted out as well as the mouth of the Einiosaurus. You can see, of course, is in a closed position. We have the beak really nicely sculpted, painted with a dark brown, and there's also a little dry brushing of like a greenish or like a yellowish brown sort of a tone there over the beak, just to highlight some of the fine texturing in that area. Moving up into that trademark Einiosaurus horn, you can see the horn as well as the texturing itself on the horn. Looks really nice, but also the paintwork. I love the way that they've painted this. Very nice, vibrant tones of color there in the center, but I like how it starts out with a darker tone and then transitions to a darker tone for the tip, really helping to highlight that horn. Moving back into the eye, we can see the eye is painted with a yellow, given a black pupil. There's also a good bit of variation of color here in the face with some darker browns as well as some blue spots and stuff that move through. You've also got kind of like some oranges and like some off-whites and stuff. So as always, a good bit of variation of color, even a little variation up here above the eye. Haolonggood always delivers fantastic paint applications on their releases. Moving up into the frill, you can see some osteoderms that lead up as well as some nice spikes that lead out around the edge. Again, some spots that move through, and then leading into the center of the frill, you can see some greenish tones, some bluish tones, as well as an orange that is outlined with a gray, definitely giving you some unique patterns there in the frill. As you lead up, again, you've got more horns up here, painted pretty much similarly to what we saw on the nasal horn, but instead of ending in like a darker tone, we actually end in a really light tone, more like an off-white as you lead out, also helping to highlight those horns. But again, you lead down, you can even see like purplish tones as you move through. So the variation of color in the face of this one is fantastic, and also the sculpt again is just super, super nicely done. Leading back into the neck, you can see some tensing in the neck, definitely in this instance, because you can see from the box art, as well as of course the overall visual of this diorama, that these two are dueling, so you're going to see some tensing as the two are basically slamming into each other, and they've definitely shown that off nicely in the sculpt as well. Especially as you move down here, you can even see a little tensing in the lower part of the neck. Moving up here, you can also take note to the fact that we have some very nice, very smooth paintwork here to the back of the frill with some browns and oranges. Really nice and naturally applied back there. Again, very impressive skin texture. And then as you begin to move through the body, you of course take note to the spinal column up here, but also we have this very nice light, sort of like a white tone, and then you have some green and blue spots that kind of follow the green, and that just basically patterns through the majority of the Einiosaurus, looking really cool, and considering how dark the greens are, that really plays off of the light off-white tones of the body. There's actually a slight tint of almost like an orange that moves through here, just ever so slight, and you almost don't even notice it unless you have it in like a certain angle. So some super cool paintwork as far as that goes. But leading through the body, we can also take note to some osteoderms popping up here and there. As we lead into the front leg, we've got very impressive muscle muscle definition shown off, some skin wrinkles and folds, especially as you get closer to the elbow, leading down into the foot sculpt. The foot sculpt looks really nice. You've got the toes sculpted, and as we can see, we transition to like a darker, almost like a purplish tone, moving down into the foot. The nails are painted with a black as well, and then we lead here toward the back leg, and as we lead back, we can see some more wrinkling here in the stomach region, as well as the skin stretching there with the leg stretching off of the stomach. Again, very impressive muscle definition, as you usually find on a ceratopsian, with that big beefy thigh back here. Leading down, we've got the calf muscle, again some more oranges showing up, as well as of course all of those patterns leading through. You can even see some oranges right here in the lower part of the stomach, and then you lead down into the foot sculpt, and when it comes to this foot, you can see it's basically picking up off of the ground as the toes are bending. And then we lead up again out into the tail, and I love the tail has really nice curvatures to it, as well as transitioning to a nice bright orange as you lead out there toward the tip. The underside does feature the cloaca, as well as some more very nice skin detail, and again a lighter tone basically moving down the center of the ceratopsian. When you lead over here, you can see the legs are held closer together, whereas on the other side they're kind of held further apart, again kind of showing off that sort of charging motion that we have for the ceratopsian, which looks really cool. The skin wrinkles and everything there in the front of the rear leg, considering it's pushing into the stomach, is also really nicely done, and again leading out into the nice curvatures of the tail. And then we've got the other version, which actually, as you can see, is not the exact same sculpt. So normally Haolonggood will release some figures where it's two different paint variants of the same sculpt, but they've done this a little bit in the past, where like with the Dilophosaurus, like you had two different sculpts in that release. You do have two different sculpts in this release for the Einiosaurus as well. Moving through the head sculpt, though, the fine detail, for the most part, looks pretty much the same to me. Very impressive skin texture, tons of variation of color, very different color scheme for this one, as we have some nice vibrant oranges and greens throughout the face, as well as darker tones. You can even see darker tones there as you get closer into the eye. We can see some really subtle brown spots here and there. Again, the same type of paintwork for the beak, where you have a brown and then that dry brushing. You see a little bit more of that as you move up into the horn, but this horn is very nice and bright when it comes to that orangish tone leading out, but the texturing again of the horn is so nicely done. There does seem to be a little bit of difference when it comes to that little area right above the eye, because if you look at the other one, that one's a little bit more pointed than what you see on this one. I don't know if maybe that's like something to do with the sex of the version that we are looking at. I'm not entirely sure. But as you move up into the frill, you can definitely see the scale detail, I think, a little nicer on this one, because there's not quite as much going on when it comes to the variation of color, but you can definitely see how nice that scale detail pops. Again, some greens, very nice patterning, this time with an orange there, kind of outlined by a slightly different shade of green. And then we move up into the horns. Again, we start out with a darker tone, and then that transitions out to an orange, and then transitions to a lighter tip, a little bit more dry brushing as well in that area. And then of course the head sculpt looking gorgeous over here, just like it did on the first side. Fairly close as far as the head sculpt goes on this one compared to the first version. You can see they don't look too different, I would say, as far as that. But as you lead back, one thing you will notice, of course, we still have that tensing in the neck and everything, considering, again, it is dueling. But you've got a good bit of variation of color leading back. You've got some nice browns that stripe through the top of the dinosaur. You also have some yellows that follow along the back of our Einiosaurus as well. And then as you move down into the side, you've got a few different variations of greens. We can see the legs are in a bit of a different position on this one compared to the other one. The front leg here is kind of lifting up off of the ground a little higher. The toes are picking up off of the ground here on the rear foot, but basically the same on both sides. You can really see the pushing movement of the dinosaur, again, as it is dueling. And the really cool green, like the darker green stripes down through the legs. The skin, actually the brown actually stripes down back here on the rear leg. The stripes, again, look really nice and smooth as far as the way they've been applied. The texturing looks great. The musculature looks great. I actually would say I think I prefer this one as far as the two different color variants go. I just really love the tones of color that are used on this one. But you have the same style skin texture, same type of like osteoderms and stuff moving through. A lighter tone here on the underside with some oranges added here and there for a little bit of subtle paintwork, especially back here as you move into the cloaca. You've got a nice curve to the tail, but a little bit different than than the curve that we had seen on the other one, as well as, of course, that nice striping. And we do transition to a nice off-white out here for the tip of the tail, so a little flashiness out there as well. But that is an absolutely spectacular Einiosaurus, just like the first version. And then we do have the base, and as you can see, the base is pretty much what you usually find from Haolonggood. Really nice earthy area, nice earthy tones, very impressive paintwork. You've got a little vegetation here and there. You've got some rocky areas as well, and then a nice little body of water, which is something they often add to their figures. I'm waiting for them to start kind of adding like fish or something into these little areas of water. I think that would just be super, super cool. A nice subtle little addition to the models that could really amp up the realism of the scene. But the base, again, super impressive when it comes to the fine detail and texturing, as well as the sheer amount of paintwork that they put into it. You can see really nice dry brushing techniques that have been added to, again, bring out the detail, but also add realism to some of the rocky areas. And again, a good bit of variation of color with different shades of browns and stuff, really bringing everything to life beautifully. And it is a bit hollow here on the underside, but again, a fantastic base to go with an incredible pair of Einiosaurus. As far as the size go, I would imagine both Einiosaurus are pretty much the same size. You're looking at around 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. And then for a height, a little bit under, actually I would say close to 2 3/4 inches, or almost 7.5 centimeters, whereas this one is actually a little bit higher at just a hair under 3 inches, or a little bit over 7 centimeters. So fairly similar, but yeah, definitely a slight bit higher as far as the horns go. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our Haolonggood Einiosaurus. And as you can see, they are nice and small, just like you would expect them to be, again, for this species of ceratopsian in 1/35th scale. And then for just a few more comparisons with a few random Haolonggood ceratopsians, because I feel like that's probably the best comparison route we can go, we do have the Styracosaurus stepping in here, and you can see they are fairly similar in size. There's also the Diabloceratops, which is actually a bit smaller than our Einiosaurus, as well as the Xenoceratops, which is a little bit bigger than the Einiosaurus. And then finally, the Nasutoceratops, which as you can see as well is a bit larger. And then one final comparison, because we actually have the Papo Einiosaurus, which you can see just how much better the Haolonggood version is, almost putting the Papo version to shame. So these brand new Haolonggood Einiosaurus are both fantastic. As always, Haolonggood delivers, and delivers in a big way with every release. The sculpts on these are absolutely gorgeous from head to tail. They are super highly detailed and show off an incredible scene with two Einiosaurus dueling. I think they've done honestly one of their best jobs on any of their ceratopsians when it comes to the sculpts of these two, and the paintwork as well is fantastic as always. Lots of variation of colors, super smooth paint application, nice dry brushing, and very nice airbrushing techniques added to the figures to make sure they look as highly detailed and as lifelike as possible, which they always do. They've done a great job of paying attention to the fine details like muscles tensing and everything throughout the course of both of the ceratopsians. And they come with a great base, which is, of course, an awesome addition when it comes to displaying the models and really creating a scene and bringing the scene to life with both of these ceratopsians. And the base is extremely highly detailed, just as the ceratopsians are, beautifully painted, and as a whole, the entire scene is constructed really nicely by Haolonggood. So without a doubt, a very high recommendation from me. Probably the two best Einiosaurus when it comes to this type of figure that you're going to find anywhere. So if you are interested, check the link that I will include in the description and pick these up from Lana Time Shop, because that's where I purchased mine. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.